once posted on our LinkedIn page that diversity is a program, inclusion is a state of mind. And for the tech world, the state of mind is gradually shifting because we have the change makers within this system. Today, at the grand finale of Geek Goddess 2021, in this section, I take pride in bringing you a conversation with the dynamic leaders who not just preach diversity and inclusion, but practice it as well. Let's see.
Welcome to grand finale of TechGig Geek Goddess 2021 panel discussion. I'm Krithi. Marla will be the host for today's panel discussion. With the paradigm changes happening all around the world, most organization has had to transform to be a key enabler of business strategy and competitiveness. But what do all these changes mean for the organization today? What skills should employees be nurturing to enhance the career in a changing market? What opportunities should one consider? We are going to have a very enriched conversation with our esteemed panelists today. Folks, please join me in welcoming Anjali Rao, Senior Director, HR Intel, Daya Makwana, Country Head HR India TomTom, Deepa Ganapathy, Vice President Quess IT Staffing, Priyanka Anand, VP and Head HR Ericsson, Nidhi Das, Director and Head Human Resources UiPath, India and South Asia. Over to the panelists for introduction. Anjali, would you mind going first?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me on this panel. My name is Anjali Rao, and I lead HR for Intel in India. I've been in this role for about 3 years, and I've had about a 16-year career journey in Intel. I am extremely and deeply passionate about the people function, and I believe the people function is a very key lever in differentiating how a business achieves its goals.
I think maybe we can go with Deepa.
Hi, I'm Deepa Ganapathy, and I'm really thrilled to be a part of this forum. I represent Quess Corp, which is India's largest private sector employer with about 383,000 employees on our payrolls today. I've been in IT staff augmentation for over a decade now. Prior to Quess Corp, I was with Accenture for about 7 years in financial services, learning and development, and resource management. Outside of work, I am a equestrian passionate sport enthusiast. Alongside, I am an accomplished badminton player, currently playing at the national level, and I'm a voracious reader. And I look forward to exchanging thoughts in this forum today.
I think maybe we'll go with Daya.
Hello, everyone, and very good afternoon. I'm Daya, and I'm a graduate in psychology and a postgraduate from Symbiosis. Now, nearly 2+ decades in HR function, and I think I'm very passionate about two things that I've done along with the career is my coaching certification and certified diversity program, because it gave me very different perspectives, and it was kind of a self-coaching for me. Other than work, I'm a single mom with 2 grown-up boys, and I love nature. So I do anything to build a sustainable planet, right from planting a tree to participating in NGOs. And I love watching award-winning films. So that's about me. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we'll go with Nidhi.
Hi everyone, my name is Nidhi Das and have about 20 years of experience in HR, belong to a very small town, tier 2 city called Sagar in MP. Very passionate about giving back to the community. I have led the HR functions across India and countries and emerging markets of Europe as well as Asia Pacific. Now I lead the UiPath HR team for the past 10 months. It's been an exciting journey here. And outside of work, I enjoy playing basketball and table tennis. If not in HR, I possibly would have been a chef. And I also write small poems with my little one, which is good fun. And I am so excited to be a part of this panel, sharing my thoughts with all of the esteemed panelists out here. Thank you.
Yeah, last but not the least, Priyanka. Let's.
Thanks, Krithi. And again, excited to be here and honored to be able to contribute to a big thought that we are going to discuss together as a team. A brief about myself. I have been with Ericsson for 11 years, overall 2 decades of HR experience. I've been privileged to work for a lot of greenfield projects or roles in my career. So building it from the scratch, design, develop, and deliver. And as an HR, I found that quite valuable because you could really make business outcomes a reality by becoming an enabling function versus just a partnering function. Outside of work, I definitely am an avid reader. I love to travel, and I'm a doting mother, which is my full-time job outside of my current job, because it's a constant balancing that I do with my daughter, who's a 20-year-old. But I live diversity to the core. You know, I come from a family where the birth of a girl child, that was me, was celebrated in a much more pomp and show than my brother. And likewise, doesn't say you should do it. So follow the heart, but don't follow the biases. And here I am wanting to contribute to this topic that we will discuss together as a team.
Thank you, everyone. I'm really, really excited, more so because after hearing all of you talking about your passion and outside of work, what you bring to the table, it's definitely going to be a fascinating conversation for sure. Let us begin our panel discussions. I think I'll begin with starting to lay out the landscape, what we have ahead of us, right? Which is business have big challenge to deal with us, with at the moment, such as market risk, tightening budget, and constantly evolving competitiveness which exists in the market, right? And I'm very much interested to hear from the panelists today is like, with all of this happening, how are you prioritizing diversity, right? And also, can you talk about some of the most effective strategies you have developed to, enable diversity and inclusion in your teams, right? So that's what I would like to hear about. Maybe we start with Priyanka.
All right, so great to be the first one on the go. And like I said in my introduction, not coincidental, but I live the value of diversity, inclusion, and equity by being a real example of what I believe in and how I've managed every single part of my life, being a true representation of it. But talking about diversity in general, and I think what's important for us to recognize is data has proven it beyond doubt that when organizations are focused on diversity and inclusion and have made every possible effort to create that environment, that culture, where every single employee can bring their full self to the work, it creates a exponential effect or impact on their performance capability. Almost we experience an increase by 30%. Or organizations experience an outflow of 2.3 times higher financial cash flows than the non-diverse organizations, as stated by the Deloitte report. So to me, facts is one part of the whole journey. The other thing is, how are we leading it by example? And at Ericsson, we have started to set the tone from the top. Representation of diversity at the executive level has been a non-negotiable, and we see a fairly strong representation of diversity in terms of gender, ethnicity, and also generational across multiple levels of our organization. The other thing I would, of course, say is that nothing gets delivered, by default. There's a lot of efforts, investments, and initiatives that go behind it. And to me, what we've done has been some good outcomes, starting from creating employee resource groups, because employees today, when we speak to the candidates as well, prefer to work for organizations who have a clear commitment and invested efforts towards making an impact on diversity and inclusion. So these employees resource groups create an opportunity for employees to come forward and be the change they want to see, and see a stronger commitment and outcomes from the organizations, including how they're experiencing Ericsson from within, right? And also how candidates perceive Ericsson from outside. On top of it, there have been committed programs like how do we invest in at the bottom of the pyramid? So when we get to the campus, we start to make commitments of 50% of campus hires being diversity candidates. Because unless we start to do things at the bottom, we will never be able to see the impact coming at the top of the pyramid. At the same time, we create cohorts like the mid-level women leaders, and we are trying to build a mind shift change, telling them, don't wait for somebody to pat on your back, raise your hand, be ambitious, and be raring to go for a bigger change or for a lateral move. and we invest in programs just spread across multiple phases to ready them for more diverse, complex, and challenging roles. And we call that program Aspire. And likewise, at the top of the pyramid, we have programs like Altitude. So my whole message is diversity and inclusion is definitely a cornerstone on how we see Ericsson evolving as an organization. And in the industry today, unless we do everything possible towards making that impact, organizations will at least be left out or will not be able to make the cut to be an attractive employer. And at the same time, we definitely want to make an impact by creating an internal culture where women can experience flexibility, can experience inclusion, can also experience the fact that there's an equity in the way they are treated vis-a-vis all other colleagues that they have, male colleagues in the organization. So something that we live by and something that we are committed to, and hoping to hear from the others on how they're making that impact.
Deepa, would you like to add from your end?
Sure, Krithi, thank you. I think, Priyanka very nicely highlighted the efforts that's actually being, put by Ericsson and leading the organization. Now, Quess as an organization has been in the, IT staff augmentation and IT business solution space. How are we making an impact and bringing in a difference, right? So we are the organization wherein we connect, talent with opportunities. So when we talk about talent and opportunities, it has to be definitely inclusive and extremely diverse. So when we look at it from an outsider point of view, how do we represent ourselves? How do we carry ourselves in the market? So that's where I think predominantly this comes into picture. During pandemic, we have had an opportunity to host India's largest virtual career fair. We have had I think close to 7,500 women techies taking part in this career fair, looking for opportunities and seeking employment. So that was one of the initiatives that was led recently. Alongside, we've also had a very successful virtual hackathon for women techies, which is called Triumph, under the banner of Triumph, for tech divas. Now, in this conclave, which was actually hosted for 2 days, there were tech professionals, especially women at various levels, who came on board, took part in the session. Went through the coding, assessment. So it was a very, very, I think, engaging event. So now there are various things that one could do at an organization level. I'm part of Quess IT Staffing, and at Quess IT Staffing, I'm very proud to say that the gender percentage is about 58. So we are actually quite well balanced. But if you look at the pyramid, I think it kind of tapers down when you look at the top of the pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid, I think it is always very robust and very inclusive. But when you look at the top, there has to be a constant effort made. Now, this begins with the resilient leaders. It's not only a nicely, a statement to have, the first of all, I think one must look at the big picture. One must own the narrative. Secondly, look at what can be done. Aim at a particular timeline. Put a speed towards it. Looking at it, and it has to be a constant effort. Now, there could be an activity that is driven for a particular time frame, but alongside this has to be an ongoing activity, right? So there are certain mentorship programs. There are certain coaching sessions, especially designed for women. So that is one thing that we as an organization are driving in Quess. Alongside, we've also looked at diversity as a whole. So there were various initiatives that were actually hosted. In fact, we've looked at welcoming employees from diverse background, looking at providing opportunities for people with who are differently abled. So we are not only looking at diversity in one particular segment, but various streams as well. So that makes us as an organization extremely diverse. So I think, yeah, with that said, let's see what our other panelists have to share. I look forward to hearing from you.
Maybe Nidhi, you can talk about what you are doing at your organization, and also I would be slightly interested to understand, right, the points and the program in the initiative Priyanka and Deepa has mentioned, right. It also talked about the fact that the DNI is all about changing the mindset, right, because it requires a lot of the change, right. So how have you led those changes and overcome some of the challenges associated with that, right? Maybe you can talk a little bit on that as well.
Thanks a lot. I think for me, diversity actually is more about the discussion, in terms of inclusion, right? Like it basically begins with including people, giving the opportunity to the folks who are coming on board to belong to the organization and to be able to really bring their true authentic self to work. And I think diversity then is the outcome. I think from a UiPath perspective, we are really looking at accelerating human achievement in whichever ways and forms that we can. And some of our values around being bold, immersed, and um, all of this really drives some of this. And we saw this beautifully happening around the pandemic right now in terms of some of the initiatives we led around belonging and how we helped people traverse through their own journeys. But I think it begins essentially from the leadership. Our leaders in Daniel Deans and Bettina, all of these folks really are driving diversity from the core, and it belongs to at the leadership level what we are talking about from a diversity standpoint, what our point of view is, how we are including folks, and also looking at initiatives and programs that are very focused around bringing the best of talent around not just diversity in terms of women, but even things like neurodiversity, talking about unconscious bias, a lot of initiatives that are happening around UiPath on those. Also at the hiring front, Priyanka mentioned, we are very focused on really putting on at least 45% of folks looking at the interns level coming in at women who are women. But actually speaking, it starts with really creating and facilitating that infrastructure for people. What happens is that people may drop off if you're not able to provide them that opportunity to begin with, and also to allow them and enable them in terms of the programs that you may have. So it starts with our women leaders coming and talking through some of the cohorts that we have, which are around how to balance work and home, how to really be the best of folks in the space of RPA, looking at allowing women who are struggling to get back to work. So we're looking at a returnee program right now for people in RPA to see and get them to work. That's one initiative that we are trying to really drive. And I think it's a question of focused effort around it at all levels of leadership.
Great. Let's maybe hear from Daya.
Yeah, thanks, Krithi, and very well said by Nidhi. I think one very important point that I personally believe is to be yourself. You need to feel you belong, or you need to belong. So you can't make up things. You have. So at TomTom, we consider that diversity inclusion. It's a journey. It's not a destination. We TomTom itself makes a world, I would say, because we have globally people with more than 80 nationalities, and talking to them, aligning with them, having conversation brings in so many new perspectives to us. That learning itself is that exposure itself is a lot of I would say learning, big learning. uh, Very good point made by Nidhi is, about this entire hybrid bringing back people, or and we believe in this trust model where you give the flexibility, you offer, you just focus on the outcome matters. So be somebody wants to work part time, somebody wants to work 3 days a week, or whatever you decided with your manager what works out best for you. And that's we call what program working at TomTom with a hybrid model. This program has been very helpful to parents, especially caregivers for senior citizens, those who have senior citizens at home. It's been a boon for them. Also, giving this flexibility avoids traffic congestion, and it really supports environment. So I think we also have now the childcare center, which is really tuned up to hourly basis. So those and we also believe in having gender neutral workplace. So this facility is extended to both men and women to bring in their children, and you can just bring in for hourly or half day, or you decide. And that kind of flexibility really allows people to get excited about coming back to work, and believe in this inclusion. I think these are the one of the initiative that I must mention here is during the Pride Month, we started an initiative called On This Journey Together, which really focused on education, empowerment, and allyship. So that's something that I truly believe in, that we come up together, we stand for each other, and we be an ally to each other. So I think these are my thoughts on the topic.
Great. Anjali, let's hear from you as well. How are you leading the changes in Intel?
Building a diverse and inclusive workforce requires continued collective investments and innovative approaches. And this is something at Intel where we believe it has to be linked to how it impacts our business. And in line with that, at Intel, diversity and inclusion is actually a part of our corporate RISE goals, which stands for Responsible, Inclusive, and Sustainable World enabled through our technology. And DNI is an integral part of it. And as part of the 2030 RISE goals, we have committed to increasing women representation in technical roles to 40%, doubling the number of women and underrepresented minorities in senior leadership roles, advancing accessibility, and growing the number of employees self-identifying themselves as having a disability to 10% of our workforce. And this is something that is can be achieved, we believe, at Intel by taking different approaches. And therefore, at Intel India, we have different streams which are focused on diversity and inclusion agenda. We have, of course, the stream that is focused on women in technical roles, women in leadership. How do we ensure that we have the right representation of women in the various roles? We have a stream that is focused on people with disability. We have a stream that is focused on people who are differently oriented, which is your LGBTQ plus community, and how do we include them and invite them to be a part of our workforce. And last but not the least, and more recently so, we have really heightened our focus on the topic of mental health and wellness. This is one place where I really believe that we have to normalize the entire debate about feeling mentally okay, and that linked to productivity of our employees. And that's exactly what we're trying to do at Intel. A couple of other points that I will add is when it comes to our approach to DNI, DNI is actually embedded in Intel's culture values. It is something that we look at running across the board in all the processes that we have. And because it is a business imperative for us, we ensure that we have all the voices at the various levels of the organization represented in this particular narrative. So the tone really gets set from the top. Our leaders, our managers actually actively participate in ensuring that they are increasing the diversity in their organizations and creating those really inclusive workplaces.
Okay, thank you, Anjali. So I'm going to build on what Anjali said about the business imperative, and the goals and objective of the business really is centered around what we do, what we drive the program and the initiative of with respect to the organization, right? My next question I would like to really interested to understand from the panelists is like the future is hybrid. That's what is the pandemic has accelerated. I know that it has been with some organization before, but I think the beauty of the pandemic is like it has enabled the transformation of the hybrid work, right? It's not about where we work from, it's about how do you work, right? I think I would like to understand maybe from some of you that how are you making sure that with all of the hybrid in play, and we also talked about the mental well-being, we also talked about how leadership should show off differently. The empathetic leadership has become become a main point of discussion with everything what we do. How are we making sure that the experience is intact with all that what you do? So maybe if some of you can throw light on this topic, it would be really great.
I don't know, I could go first, and of course, everybody will have wealth of experience behind this, Krithi. But if I look at it, the beauty about the current situation and how we kind of transitioned all of us overnight from being a full-time physically accessible workforce to 100% being remote was path-breaking, right? There were long-held beliefs about how there will be a severe impact on productivity or ability to move the business agenda forward if people weren't physically co-located. And from that mindset to having transitioned to an overnight 100% remote workplace concept has been path-breaking. And to me, the way I see it, the beauty about the future is nobody knows how it will unfold, right? There's no empirical data, and there is no evidence telling us how we should start to envision the future. But a lot of conversations about future of work that we're having in smaller cohorts within Ericsson, and even with panelists such as this one and the other industry cohorts, indicate that hybrid is the way to go. And Ericsson has gone out very vocally and spoken about how work for us is not a destination, but it's an activity that gets done to best suit the needs of the employee by ensuring business outcomes. So to me, hybrid will be the way forward, depending on when do we need to physically co-locate ourselves as a group of people, because it creates a sense of belonging, it creates a sense of collaboration, it creates a physical workplace where people are coming together to have those conversations and to create those relationships that are needed, right? But at the same time, there will be a huge acceleration in investing towards virtual workplace. And that we all have seen has got profound benefits of having that balance between physical and virtual, because it helps us deal with any kind of eventuality, but also creates a culture of collaboration and flexibility, which is really needed now. So to me, the hybrid is going to be more about we, in a way, reinventing our workplaces to create more teaming, collaborating spots for people to come together and spend time together. But at the same time, giving our people and employees flexibility to choose to work how they want to work, to choose to work from where they want to work. If we create those flexibilities, and like I think Anjali also alluded to, we also let having individuals build their own curated flexible pathways. My needs are different from, let's say, the needs of Daya here, right? So how do we start to get individuals empowered to make those flexible needs evident to their leaders and have conversations about their flexibility requirements with the managers? And the second thing I would say is this is going to be a big change. So by no means are we as an organization taking it on the go and leaving it to eventuality. We are spending a good amount of time coaching our leaders and investing in them to evolve them as coaches to have here and now and futuristic conversations with their teams. But at the same time, also equipping them to be effective in a hybrid way of leading. Something that they've been practicing from 100% physical to 100% virtual. But when it becomes hybrid, that reality will deliver and pose different level of complexities, challenges, and opportunities. So we are proactively working with our development partners to equip our leaders to be ready for that level of leadership and that level of productivity and outcome-based conversations. At the same time, like I said, we are spending hugely on technology and creating communication platforms for smooth transition from 100% virtual to a hybrid, and ensuring that we do everything possible to secure, enhance employee experience, and increase employee engagement and employee morale. The last I would say is it's extremely important that we continue to create a speak up culture where employees can come forward and express their needs and their desires and their asks. At the same time, they can have open, candid conversations with their managers. That environment of speak up, collaboration, and cooperation is extremely important to succeed in the future of work. So that's my input, and I'm happy to hear the inputs from others, Krithi.
Yeah, maybe Anjali, do you want to add?
Sure, I could go ahead and add. So I think I just want to build on Priyanka's a couple of points, right? I think number one for Intel, we are going down the hybrid path. But two other things I'll say before that and link it to the whole theme of inclusion and diversity is, even as we are designing our workplaces to welcome employees back, there is the realization that everybody has different needs and there is flexibility that we need to build in. Plus the fact that employees are really at the front and center for us. And their health, their wellness, their safety is extremely critical. So to that end, there is the whole flexibility that is offered to employees in terms of how many days a week they need to come in, how they want to work, etc. We are soon starting to see that offices are now becoming more spaces for collaboration, for teaming, versus having a desk and chair to sit and work on. And nothing wrong with that, but I think this is an example of how the world has evolved post pandemic, and I think that links also to the whole notion of innovation, right, which is an extremely critical part of how we do work, and the nature of our business itself, right? And the idea really is, how can our future of workplace, the models that we have, really help employees bring their best foot forward, give them that opportunity to collaborate and innovate, and also show up as culturally and highly inclusive workplace of diverse work needs, and at the same time ensure that all of this is getting balanced with what we actually need to deliver to our customers and to the business, right? So that's really how we are looking at the post-pandemic era to kind of play out for us.
I'll just sorry.
Go ahead, Nidhi. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add to what Priyanka and Anjali said. I think it essentially begins with our leaders operating from a place of no judgment and actually coaching our leaders to role model the behaviors that we want them to demonstrate in terms of being accepting, in terms of allowing people to be just themselves, creating psychological safe spaces. I think that's super critical right now. And I really love the word that Priyanka mentioned about the ask or the demand culture. You really need to allow organizations to be in a space where employees have a voice and they can say whatever that comes to their mind, without the fear of judgment, and with the space of allowance, right? It's very, very important that we are having those honest dialogues around what is my need, how can I be supported around that need, what the organization could do, what could I do in terms of flexibility that I provide to the organization. Because if it helps me navigate my work life, I think it's more about, not about work life balance, but it's more about navigating my work life, and how I do that really well, balancing the needs of my child, balancing the need of my family, balancing the need of my boss with a big presentation that I may need to work on, whatever that is, right? So it's very, very important that the hybrid policies of the future are keeping in mind of what is relevant in the current context.
Go ahead, Deepa.
Right. Okay. So I think, from the perspective of hybrid model, how has this actually come into foray, right? So black swan events like pandemic will have a lasting impact. If you look at, the situation as a whole, it is definitely an impact to the global economy, especially to the tech industry. As it is, we have already seen disruption in terms of technology. A lot of, I think, skills like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, all of these has quite had a significant impact, has actually replaced the way things were typically traditionally being functioned. Now with this pandemic coming into I think picture, in the last 18 months, the impact that it has had has definitely created hybrid work culture. Alongside, it has also given a lot of opportunity in various cities. Now today, working from office has actually probably not so important today. I think most of the organizations, including us, are location agnostic. Irrespective of the locations, the productivity still remains. In fact, there are data to prove that it is better. So when we look at that, there is definitely a comparison on in terms of how many workforce could probably continue to remain in close physical proximity. What are the roles which could probably work, irrespective of the locations that they are in? Now the idea is just to connect, exchange ideas, thoughts, and continue. Now this has also put a little bit of pressure on the organizations. While the hybrid model continues to be executed, delivered, monitored, what happens is, how is the performance getting enhanced? How are the employees getting engaged? What are we doing about it? All said and done, I think there is a lot of impact now. Not many of them would like to voice it over, but the fact is that there is a certain psychological impact. There is a little bit of physical stress. If you look at the framework, right? Today organizations are extremely cautious of the impact on physical, social, financial, I think, intellectual. There is a lot of, stress on well-being. Why is this? Because of hybrid work culture. Otherwise, we are so used to a structural way of working. We are also scheduled in terms of work. But today with hybrid workforce, I guess the timing is actually irrespective. There is completely a blur between, your personal life and your, working hours. With that said, as much as there are advantages to hybrid model, but I think, how do we continuously navigate this, overcome all the challenges? Leaders will definitely have a pressure on financial sustainability, what kind of profits, how is the bottom line looking at the end of it. But I think, at the end of it, who are the people who are driving it, right? How are we ensuring that they are well protected? Whatever support is required, how we as an organization are enabling that. Alongside, how are we involving the talent? We've already covered diversity, we already covered inclusion. So there is a whole lot of, I think, aspects that has to come into picture. Hybrid actually workplace puts a lot of responsibility on all of us here in the industry. I guess I think it is a matter of time that we learn to ride this wave, we learn to get better. There is absolutely no guideline or probably manual for us to refer to and continue with that. We will have to get innovative. We will have to respond to the situation. We will have to manage and continue our business and recover and continuously improve. So that's the way to go about. Over to you, Krithi.
I think just connecting to the fact Deepa talked about, I think there is one, the trend which is all of us are facing is like great shuffle, which is going on in the industry, right? Historically as well, we have seen that the large population of the women workforce drops during some of the major life cycle, what we have seen, right, when what we call it as a leaky talent pipeline, right? And I would be interested to understand if any of you have a program, right, which you are running successfully to bring back the talent to the workforce, right? Or has the pandemic or the COVID situation helped or has posed more challenges with respect to bringing back the women to the workforce? Maybe we can hear from Daya or Nidhi.
I think I'll be crisp. I see we are at 43 minutes, but there is something I want to talk about is the biological clock of the women. You come at the middle of your career journey, and most of us may decide to go for children. You come to a leadership stage and you go for menopause. So there is a need to positively discriminate when it comes to a woman's journey in a workplace, there is a need to support that at every point of time. So it's not just at the time of maternity, but from the time, because I've seen so many of them taking a decision to leave the job just to relocate or just to look after the children. So there is this support which is required to the entire journey, and not just bringing her back from maternity. We have a beautiful initiative called maternity counseling center, and which is part of the whole journey, part of the whole support system that we have, because we really don't want women to go through those motherhood penalties. We want them to feel supported right from the day they mention it to we have a beautiful program called TomTom Kids. So they feel welcome. They don't feel that they have lost something. There are enough integration programs that happen. There's a welcome party which is organized by the team. There's a lovely message that goes. So the entire journey is mapped by these events to make the whole experience very beautiful for the women, and not just maternity, the entire journey of a woman, because she goes through so many stages during her entire career journey. So that's the point I want to bring in when it comes to bringing back to workplace.
I would say that to add to what Daya mentioned, I think allowing conversations like this to, first of all, occur, where we can speak of an entire life cycle of women in terms of their careers from the time they start to, the point that Priyanka made about the belief that I have in myself. Do I have the courage to stand and ask for what is needed at all points of time in my career? To begin with, that to be saying that this is what I need to set in terms of my boundaries, I think it's very, very critical that the organization looks at all of those aspects. And I would say with the pandemic, it's not just been with women alone, it's been with caregivers, whether it is men, women, or anybody for that matter, right? That you need to provide that support for people to come back. At UiPath, we are looking at a returnee program for women. At this point, we are having conversations with partners around that we would look at. A lot of conversations around the whole space of belonging, right? Small things, small gestures, like any meetings that we are starting right now, we talk of a belonging moment. Anytime in the last week or 10 days that I've been in the system, what was that defining belonging moment for me as a person, where I felt that I belonged to UiPath, where I felt that I was cared for and supported. So I think all of these initiatives that organizations are taking are almost having us explore different aspects of belonging and diversity and inclusion that we bring to the workplace as we speak. And it's become completely different. So it's become more humane approach to doing things, more enabling people rather than anything else.
And Krithi, if I can just add for a fraction of a second, because this has been a very important aspect, because just getting to the campus and hiring women and accelerating their growth journey has been part of our strategy for a while. But when the pie is already small, there's only so much you can do by investing in that pie. And I think it's an interesting concept about how do we get women back to the workforce, especially pandemic is creating excess pressure on women, right? So we're continuing to coach the women employees by telling them lean in, right? Important to leverage the larger ecosystem. Don't feel like you're a lone warrior to resolve the whole situation by yourself, but get your family and the support system to chip in and play a role to enable you to be successful in balancing this whole professional personal situation. The second thing I would say is extremely important. Don't wear burnout as a badge of honor.
So I just wanted to add on what Priyanka was highlighting. And the point I was trying to make really is that when it comes to addressing a leaky pipeline in the workforce, it's got to be a holistic approach, one where you look at where you hire, how you hire, how do you nurture that talent while they are with you, and acknowledging that there could be those points in time where the chances of women dropping off the workforce are higher. And to that end, I think the whole part on advocacy, that is, what does the organization stand for? Going and investing back in the community. For example, right, through our Being Wise initiative, we have made an effort to increase and encourage STEM, for instance, right? STEM, I mean, girl children in STEM. And I think that, and also involve women and be the lean in partners, as Priyanka calls it, right? Because a lot of women have gone through that experience, they've come out of it successful. There are always stories to share, right? I just think that this whole concept of lean in and building a community really strengthens the narrative for retaining women back. The one last thing I'll say is, I think indicators, we have to measure. If you don't measure, you really don't know what the story is out there. And I think it's so important to have diversity specific indicators built into all your metrics, whether it's attrition, whether it's your increases, your pay hikes, whatever you're giving, your benefits, are they differentiated in many ways? And I think that's an important one that I did want to call out as well.
Thank you, Anjali, and thank you, everyone. So I think one thing reconfirms from today's conversation is like business is continuously evolving and changing. And I think some of you rightly called out today's discussion as well, that future is unknown. I think, we don't know what is ahead of us. And when the pandemic started, I don't think so we were ready for the continuous change each one of us had to deal with in our workplace, right? That was unknown. And I think what is important as a HR leader for all of us is like, how do you drive this continuously evolving challenges and the changes? Being agile, I think that's very important. And I would like to wrap this discussion by saying that thank you so much, everyone. It was really, really enriching conversation. And thanks for sharing so many insightful conversation and the inputs. It was really, really great. So we're wrapping up this panel and we are going to move into the main event. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, ladies. I am sure that this is very, very insightful for everyone.